So we are at item 10.4.1, I believe. Motion for Economic Development Week. Proclamation. Hubie?
I so move.
You'll move. Just trying to figure out. I think there's two motions or something. I don't know. Oh no, maybe not. Anyhow, Hubie, you make a motion, has made a motion for the Economic Development Week proclamation for the County of Newell. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Checks for payment. Any questions? If not, can we get a motion to accept the payment register? Brian moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Request for function of council.
Madam Reeve,
Yes.
I do have a question about the check register.
Okay.
In the list, we have our firemen attending wildfire, and then it costs $625, I think, for the course, and then $325 or something to write the test. We're also paying for the City of Brooks firemen, Kevin and Barry. Is that part of our agreement? Obviously. Yeah, Matt. Matt has the answers, Madam Reeve.
Those are the instructor costs. So for paying them as instructors for putting those courses on.
Oh, okay. So I had it wrong in my mind. Great, thank you.
They are the evaluators, correct? Anne-Marie?
I also have a question. We went a little bit too fast there. I usually look at the payment register and want to pick one that absolutely does make no sense to me, and I found one. It is CDW Canada, and it's for RUCUS support renewal for $1,987. And I couldn't even make up an answer on that one. I just didn't know.
Yeah, CDW is usually our IT stuff, so information technology. Ruckus remote support, I'll have to chase one of the guys who's smarter than me on what that is, but it would be for some of the IT stuff. That's why it's French to us all.
Yeah. And don't worry about it, IT, that's close enough. Sounds good.
Any other questions? All good. Okay. Director of Municipal Services report is here. Is that just for our, oh, there's Jeff. Okay, Jeff. Jeff, and also known as Mark today. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I haven't been through the report, but I can definitely speak to any questions and provide a response to anything, or if there is anything specific the council is looking for an update for.
Good. Brian has a question.
And you've probably answered this before. I'm getting some feedback. I don't know who that's from. But anyways, my question is in regards to that overlay that's going to be done on the One Tree Road. Why do you crack seal it first?
This is a very good question, actually, because it goes against some of the practices that we've had in the past, and I guess it is based on different philosophies. Historically, opinion has been that our crack sealing program and the type of cold pour crack seal that we used would come up and penetrate up through the asphalt layer. More recently, it's been shown that, you know, crack sealing is on a road that does have good structure already, that does have limited heaving. I mean, One Tree Road, we all know, has many areas where there's substantial cracking and alligator cracking, and those are areas where the base and the subgrade have failed. So those areas, if you are driving out the road, you'll notice haven't been crack filled, and they've skipped over those areas. Those are the areas we're going to be doing some deep strength repairs. But for the areas that do have good structural integrity, and like I mentioned, you know, minimal separation in the crack and the asphalt on either side of the crack, more recent information has said we should be filling those cracks, assuming we can get time, allow for time, the 2 to 3 weeks that the sealant needs to cure. And we are, that's why we got federal in here early to get out there and get sealing. So we do have that time, and we got them on that road immediately so we can make that happen.
Thanks, Jeff. Good answer.
Wayne, did you have a question? No? Lionel, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, but I put it down because I was going to correct myself. I like the crack sealers. I just like watching them work. I love the way they do it. And so anytime we get to have them here, I think we should.
Well, you know my feeling about them. I've enjoyed them forever. Not so much now that they've got newer trucks, so. Anne-Marie.
Yeah, those old trucks were cute. North Head Gates, how is it going, Jeff? You feeling good about it?
Hello, sorry, I was on mute there. Yeah, I am feeling good about it. It's going along pretty much exactly as I've expected. Construction's kicked off. We've got and we are out there working away. Brooks Asphalt is on site every day. And as we knew, that they're having to do a little bit of jumping around site and working on what's available at the time. The biggest holdup now is managing and getting the utility owners, homes moved, things like that, to open up those kind of key areas where we need to move with construction. I think we're in a good spot. It's taken up a substantial amount of time, but like I said, we really want to get through this and get it done with. That's the construction side, and I hope construction is wrapped up in early summer here. So that'll be great. Aside from that, on the planning side and whatnot, the actual subdivision application. So before the subdivision application, what we need to do is create a direct control district as per the area redevelopment plan, incorporate the policies within the area redevelopment plan and some other policies that we're going to bring up and recommend to council for consideration. Getting that direct control district tightened up. We've got a drawing and we'll hopefully be ready here to make that move and adopt that maybe next month, hopefully. Just want to work with our consulting team at ISL there a little bit to make sure we've got everything in order, especially with the land use bylaw rewrite that's happening concurrently. So that being said, once we have that direct control district formulated, we're going to be looking at coming into the subdivision application, and I would sure love to get this application in as soon as possible. We're working with our legal survey team at GeoVera, and we are very close Maria and I and Mr. Redelbach walked the site 3 or 4 weeks ago now. There are obviously some buildings encroaching, some other installations, some privies, so on and so forth, that we need to have rectified, buildings relocated, privies removed, obviously. A lot of that is going to happen as conditions of the subdivision application. So when that application, that there are going to be a number of conditions like specific buildings that need to be moved and whatnot, but we're very close on our plan of subdivision for submitting that. So like I say, it's all going to roll into place here in late May, June, and the first part of July, and hopefully we can get all that stuff wrapped together and before council and MPC for consideration.
Other questions? Tracy?
Yeah, just wondering, I had a complaint the other day about the dust control out there right now with the construction. Do you know how that all resolved?
Yeah, Mark did mention to me that he received a call about dust on the site. I went out there. When I was out there, there didn't appear to be a whole bunch of dust blowing around. I did have a conversation with the contractor. They do have a water truck out there, and they are more than willing to control the dust and make sure it gets knocked down. The dust is going to get a little bit more hectic here once they start coring out the roadway and the gravel haul starts and they start bringing gravel in to construct that new road grade. So we'll definitely keep an eye on it and stay on top of it and make sure that it's getting knocked down when it's an issue.
Perfect, thank you.
Hubie?
Jeff, I just wanted to send compliments from the residents of the metropolis of Tilly for doing such a great job of sweeping the pea gravel off the streets. It's just beautiful. Thanks much.
Thanks a lot. That's we'll pass that along to contractors and the staff that supervise that. But no, that's great to get them in early and get that out of there as well.
Other questions? I don't see any. So can we get a motion to accept the municipal reports, please? Lionel moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And that takes us to item 11.3, the soil erosion survey results. Todd, I guess this is.
Everybody else left me, so it's just me here in front of you. Mark and Terry aren't here to discuss any of their side, but maybe Jeff has some tidbits at some point in time. So we talked about it a little bit earlier. We did have one of our staff go out and survey all of the roads. I think she's actually hoping to be done today. The stuff that we weren't able to get to, mostly in areas that we didn't think would be affected. So she concentrated on the areas that we knew had some erosion. Long story short, I think our earlier discussions around this topic were twofold. One was about setting up the erosion committee, and the second one was cleaning out the ditches that were affected. I am happy to say that I think our erosion degradation advisory committee is going to go forward. I had some great conversations. We have a lot of other municipalities that are watching our process quite intently. The MD of Tabor, County of Lethbridge, 40 Mile County, and Cypress County. And they're just, because we're kind of maybe doing policy creation a little bit different, there was just some thoughts that we want to see how it worked out. But on the other side, we did we did the survey. I've attached some maps and I've attached some estimated costs. I think some of it maybe on the cost side might be a little bit generalized because we took what the cost was to do a kilometer of road, and then we just essentially just took that by the amount of kilometers we had. And by generalized, I mean some of the areas might not take as long as some of the other ones, and it's just going to be a flip-flop. So like I say, a generalized construction estimate. And beyond that, I guess I'm looking forward to a little bit of conversation, discussion about our findings.
Thanks, Todd. So, questions, comments, folks? Clarence?
So on the map where you have a quarter section with diagonal lines running, those are quarters that blow, or quarters beside a road that blow? What's the meaning of those?
Yeah, we tried to outline which areas the soil came from, because our intentions is to put it back to the same land that it came from.
Kelly?
Does that make sense, Clarence?
Yeah, that's fine. I just, my thought was, you know, if we're worried about dirt moving, there's a lot of quarters that aren't beside roads that dirt moves. And I guess we're not worried about that.
I think specific to this survey, you're right. We were interested in county infrastructure doing this survey, but there's a very large picture that we're not capturing. And I had the luxury of seeing a few of those that were a mile and a half off of our infrastructure. And yeah, we would have never known, you know, where there was a fence line and it's buried now kind of thing. You know, I seen those, but we didn't capture that in this survey.
Kelly?
So at our last discussion, on our last discussion about paying for this repair, we had talked about taking funds from reserves. And I'm wondering if we can have a discussion on that again. I read in the documentation that the erosion causing detriment to our infrastructure came from 7 property owners. Would that be accurate, Todd? No. Okay.
I'm not sure if we have it here. There was quite a few different property owners and quite a few different quarter sections. And I guess Clarence kind of alluded to that with the hashed markings over there. Where did I?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the 7 came from. Maybe.
I know where it came from. I went back to the RFD. You've contacted 7 landowners to be part of the erosion committee. Okay, thank you.
Right, and not all of those people that I invited had erosion concerns on their property. So,
Okay.
but yeah, sorry.
So to my point, how many landowners are we talking? Have we researched that information?
I don't know that we tabulated it all up yet, the different property owners.
Okay.
I'm sure some of you got the letter. We sent that letter out to everybody that owned more than 20 acres of land. And we did receive some phone calls back, which was great. Not 1,200 back, which was also great. But yeah, no, I think it was relatively well received, I guess. I don't know.
Anne Marie?
You did a good job on that letter, Todd was explaining it well. My question is about the EID, because I'm sure their infrastructure was affected too. So did you have a conversation?
Yeah, we've had a few conversations, and I know that Terry on the construction side has also had some conversations. So once again, what Jeff alluded to earlier was that some of our infrastructure overlaps. So our ditch is also a drain ditch. And so I think the EID, at least in my limited driving around in the last little bit, has already started some of their cleanup of their infrastructure. I've seen a few hoes doing some scooping out of drain ditches and feed ditches. So they have started. I don't know that they've done to the same extent that we have. Maybe they're starting with problem areas, or maybe they've had their, because the water's on now, they had their water delivery guys looking at that kind of thing. But we haven't reached out about the construction stuff much, except for the areas that our infrastructure overlaps.
Other questions? So Todd, this is a pretty thorough look of, or is it the first quick look, or?
I would say it's a very thorough look. And up until May 3rd, I mean, the maps that you have, those were what we expected to be the most impacted areas, just based on soil type and crops grown. So I think that's a pretty good jag of everything that we're gonna need to consider to do. And the other stuff that Tina was completing, hopefully today, was more of our northern areas that don't see the same crop types and field work conditions. So I think what we're looking at is, yeah, a pretty good look.
And is there lots of work has begun?
I wouldn't say lots necessarily. We just started on Monday, so it's hard to get lots done in 3 days, but we did, we started on the ones that we thought would be impacted by rain and water for sure.
And so that's work that we are contracting out for the county, not for landowners. Basically, that's like our work when you say.
Yeah.
Okay. Wayne?
Landowners are actually undertaking this work with, because I think we approved a permit last council.
Yeah, from what I know, oh, sorry, Wayne. Sorry. Yeah, from what I know, we had 2 landowners. One that did it prior to his agreement being signed, and one that we did last meeting in the Scandia area. That's all that I know of so far, and there's nothing in front of us or in front of you today, so I don't expect another one in the short term.
They don't have to come to us though, do they, Todd?
Well, not after the earlier part of your meeting when we changed the bylaw so that now Matt or his designate can approve that.
So staff hasn't received any other interest shown by an application or phone calls?
I think there's been a few that did, and when we outlined the application process, I'm just not sure. Maybe they just didn't go through with it. It would be nice if Mark was here for the entire discussion, just because he kind of has been getting those requests more than me, and we just kind of stay together talking about these things as we go. Right.
Okay. So today is an update, basically?
Yeah, kind of. And then we only approved the last meeting for the $100,000 to get where we were going, and just figuring out how much. I guess we'll need a. What do we call it? Sorry.
Motion?
Sorry, additional spending to continue that work in the most affected areas, the highly affected areas.
But right now, not much has been spent at all, correct?
That's correct. I think we're on our second mile.
Right. And when I remember reading it, you sort of have different determinations of what's more critical than, yeah, which is good.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we kind of did. We wanted to outline the impacted areas. We wanted to determine how much topsoil was in those ditches. And then we also wanted to identify what style or kind of ditch infrastructure that was. Is it just for county kind of water use? Is it a partnership ditch that we had done with the EID? Or is it a drain that the EID helps us manage?
So the grand total that you've presented to us is $617,000, an estimate?
Correct.
And that would be with landowners we're paying for the work done for landowners as well, correct? That's our assumption in this 600?
Well, if we were to do the whole thing, yes, we're only cleaning up county infrastructure. We're not leaving. Yeah.
Okay. Brian?
I can give you a scenario, and I just want you to respond as you think we would be looking at. So we spend this $600,000, which I think we should. What do you do with the dirt if you don't have to haul it? You just put it on the side on the adjoining person's property, and then he just comes by and scoops it up. Do we send him a bill afterwards, or what's the plan here? Do we haul it away? I know we weren't planning on hauling anything. We were just planning on cleaning the drain, or sorry, the burrow pit. But what's maybe I'm a little bit confused.
No, you're pretty close to spot on. The most cost-effective place for us to put it is just off our property. So the excavator does its thing. It's when we've outlined the land that it came from, Terry's made contact with those landowners. If there's dirt in both ditches, the excavator will take the dirt from one side, put it on the other, and then put the whole works just over the fence line for the landowner to do what they need to do with it. And
I guess that begs the question about the people that are doing it. They're paying to have it done themselves and waiting for the county to do it, and then just coming in with a manure spreader or a bucket or whatever and spreading the work that we've done that the rest of the taxpayers are paying for. And again, I want to go back to, I think the work needs to be done. There's no point in spending $1 million a year with EID and then not remediating a situation that exists. I just want to treat everybody fairly. You know, there's as far as I can see, there's three individuals that we know of for sure. Maybe it's two, I can't remember, that have indicated that they're willing to pay to get that out. You know, we can't just have a situation where we're waiting for the county to do it and then you're just going to be able to take advantage of us doing the remedial work.
I certainly think we need more discussion on that matter going forward. I don't get to necessarily make the decisions on where and when we spend all the money, but that is part of the conversation that I want to have with that advisory committee, and it'll likely lead to maybe another change to that bylaw. But when we go down this road a little farther, we need to, I wouldn't necessarily lay blame, but make sure that it does come with a consequence. Because I don't know that every time the wind blows, we want to put in this many resources, labor and money.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly where Brian was going, and just where I'm trying to figure out what we could do. I mean, if we're in for a dirty 30s type of decade or something crazy like that, I mean, this would be obviously something I hope wouldn't happen, but the landowners have to have a bit of skin in this game somehow too, I think. And that's part of your discussions with your group that you've assembled, Todd, correct?
Yeah, it certainly will be. I think it's very important to have that conversation. And I don't know that anybody wants to necessarily shirk a responsibility. I haven't had all of those conversations yet. Yeah.
Okay, good. Wayne?
So we haven't decided how we're going to, who's going to pay for this yet. We're funding it right now, but are we planning on going back to the landowners with a bill? Because I've talked to quite a few people in my area, and they're adamant that they want the landowners to pay for this cleanup. They pay their taxes like everybody else, but their land didn't move, and they figured that the guy whose land moved, they're all professional farmers. They know what they're doing, and the people I'm talking to say that these farmers should pay for the cleanup.
Brian?
So I'm going to share some of my experience over the last few weeks, and it's really quite, in some cases, astonishing about what I've seen about land that's blown and land that's not blown, and it's throughout the county. You know, as some of you well know, I run a floater for fertilizer company, and so I've seen a farmland that was seeded into corn. It had corn stubble. It had not been worked. It was from last fall, and it blew. Like there was visible erosion on that field. I've seen also a farm where it was the quick quarter was in hay. Half of it was plowed, half of it was spiked. The part that was spiked blew, which blew me away. The part that was plowed didn't. So, I mean, there's all sorts of scenarios where I think it goes back to what I think Councillor Amelung had said, is people, you know, they don't always have it figured out, but they do their best thing. And I'm not in favor of necessarily going after somebody because they've made a mistake. But I do think that in us remediating it, if there's an opportunity that somebody's taking advantage of that remediation and wants to regather that stuff, there should be some consequences or some remediation costs that they take care of if they're interested in getting that topsoil back. Just like Todd said, you know, and I think like you said, there's going to be stuff that comes out of this panel that will point us in that direction. I certainly hope so. I just don't want to paint everybody with the same brush that, oh, their topsoil blew and they're somehow negligent. That isn't always the case. Sometimes it's just the circumstances that people are dealt with, and even though they've done the best of what they possibly can do, as we know, stuff happens.
We have to remember that we've taken some pretty light soil over the years that was always grass to begin with, prairie grass, and turned it into farmland. And who knows? Maybe there will have to be some changes. Depends a lot on our climate and how it evolves in the next few decades, I would say. But I agree with what you've said, Brian, yes. Other comments before we move on, because I think we know this discussion isn't over. What we will continue to get more information from Todd, and obviously the money is not going to, what we've allotted is not going to cover it all, so we're aware that that will have to be looked at as well. Anne-Marie?
So I'll make that motion for option 1. and that will allow additional spending from the stabilization fund.
Thanks, Anne Marie, for taking us back to that page. I'd sort of skipped over it. Any further discussion on it? Lionel and Kelly?
Just a question. Are there producers that don't necessarily want that soil back? Are there producers that would let us take that soil away?
I'm confident that over 94 kilometers, there's going to be people on every side of the situation, and each one is going to be a different conversation. There's quite a few kilometers that we don't necessarily have to do, and that's why the option number one is I think a good option to go with. But yeah, there's going to be some probably that don't want it, and then it's going to be a little bit more expensive to haul it away. But there's lots of places to that can use dirt, including some of our own projects.
It is topsoil and it has quite a value, actually.
Kelly?
So I'm just, I'm really, I guess I want to go on record as saying that I'm wondering why one area of blow dirt would receive full funding and the landowner not have to take any responsibility for that at all. I think that we're setting ourselves up for something that, well, we're spending $500,000 right now, so let's be frank about it. And the entire county is picking up the tab for it. And I'm not suggesting that Div 6 is segregated from the rest of the divisions. What I'm pointing out is we have acreage people, we have all kinds of industry in the county, and this $500,000, $600,000 is coming from a reserve account that they have paid into. And we're directing it directly at the agricultural industry right now.
Keeping in mind, so these are our parts of our infrastructure that we need to keep functioning as well. So,
granted. So my point is, why are we not charging either all of it or a portion of it back to the landowner? If their dog goes missing, we pick their dog up. And this is as simple as I can get it. We charge them and we give them their dog back. So I just struggle with this. A lot bigger dollars and a lot bigger value here than a dog.
Anne Marie?
We did agree to set up this committee, and Todd is working on that. So I think we're following the right process. It needs to be cleaned up, especially before the rain starts coming, because it will. And then we have this committee working on a solution. So maybe next year when there is a big wind, or even this fall, this committee will come with a recommendation that we either approve or amend a bit, and then we'll have a policy in place on how to deal with it.
Kelly?
And in response to that, Madam Reeve, I agree with that, but this option one is an open-ended motion to spend additional funding. So is that, I mean, it's as open-ended as it could be. It doesn't say 600,000, but it is pretty well a blank check to go ahead and fix it all up quickly.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So maybe in my motion, I have to make a reference to the plan that Todd gave us for spending that needs to be done right now and spending that could be done later as time permits. Sorry, Matt.
Matt?
Although Todd doesn't have the dollar amount there in the motion, I think it's inferred that, you know, we've approved the 100,000 already. The amount of additional spending you'd need to approve would be that 203,000 today would get that orange group, the recommend completing stretches complete. Todd can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what was inferred there by that first option.
Yeah, I apologize for not having that number in there. That does make it pretty vague. That's definitely on me. And then of course we always try to do things at the most economically as possible. So hopefully it never ever does see that rate either.
Kelly?
So that brings me back to the point then. We're going to pay to clean up the worst infracted areas at 300,000+. And then we'll deal with the other 300,000 later. But the worst infractions are going to get it paid for full force. And so there's no repercussions to the landowner at all, is what we're saying. And I feel that's incorrect. I think there needs to be something picked up by the landowners.
So again, my understanding is that we have a committee in place, and those are the sorts of things that will be part of the discussion. And it doesn't mean that these people can't be billed retroactively. Or, I mean, we go out and we've got to get this done. I mean, these are critical areas. If it starts to rain, we're going to have a bigger mess. So we need to get it done. But I do believe too that, I mean, landowners need to have some skin in the game. And that's what I thought the committee would be looking at. Maybe I'm wrong. Todd, is that correct at all?
Yeah, I think it's so the idea behind the advisory committee is to create a policy that's going to guide our Ag Service Board and myself to make changes going forward. There's multiple parts that are going to be in that policy. It's going to talk about how and when we're going to do inspections, how and when we're going to contact, what's going to be on a soil conservation order should one need to be given to a landowner. Those are the kinds of things that are going to hit the policy. But while we have those great minds in our advisory committee, I think we'd be ill-fated not to take a look at that bylaw and make sure that it has the right wording to place that onus on the landowner. And not only, because right now we say that we don't want it to be deposited in the ditch and you'll get a fine, and that's great. But I think we need the wording of that bylaw to state what you guys are talking about right now, is that any remedial actions from land that's blown into the ditch will be taken by or will be paid for by the landowner. That's the go forward, but it doesn't do much for right now.
Tracy.
I think in my mind, the way I'm looking at it a little bit is right now, we have to get the work done because potentially it's going to cause a lot more damage to the roads in the area that are affected. These producers did not intentionally throw their dirt in the ditch. It happened, and this what the committee will hope to resolve is it farming practices? Is it one-offs? Is it, you know, and that's what the committee is set out to do, is to come up with a policy to avoid this. To me, at this point in time, how can we go back and charge them? Because we don't have really a policy in place, other than you can give them a fine. But it's no different than when we have frost boils on our gravel roads in the spring. It costs us extra money just because we got to go out and tend to those areas. So how do we go, okay, well, Trace, you have a frost boil in front of your house, you pay for it? You know, so there's sort of, I guess my point is, there's a certain part of maintenance that we're responsible for to begin with. And then through the committee, we could come up with the resolution for how to solve it in the future. But immediately, we have to take care of it.
Clarence and Ellen?
Play a little bit of devil's advocate here. So we have a tornado go through, my house gets moved on the top of the county road. Who's responsible for that? And how is it different than a big wind that's kind of out of the usual, deposits dirt in a county ditch? Think about that for a while.
Ellen?
So would like to say that those agricultural producers know that this is always a possibility. We live in a country where it blows regularly, at least at my place. There is mitigating, many mitigating options for them. And I'm sure the committee will come up with this, but I agree with Councillor Chrisman that there should be some, and Hammergren as well, I think there should be some sort of responsibility. Do they have to pay for the whole thing? What have you? Is it just a fine, a penalty perhaps? But there's got to be some incentive for these producers to mitigate that this perhaps not is going to happen again. Because, you know, should we all be on the hook for this? I think there's got to be some responsibility for this.
Lionel? Oops.
Well, I think I sent out an email last week or earlier this week that perhaps the landowners need to have insurance to cover conditions like this. We use insurance for all other types of losses, whether it's hail or flood or many other incidences. So perhaps that's something we're going to have to look at in the future, that producers here are going to have to be insured against these type of expenses. To go back now without having anything in place and ask for redeeming it or payment now, I think is wrong. But going forward, there needs to be some direction and some policy to explain where we stand. But I'm not being facetious about this insurance idea, because we Clarence, you mentioned your house landing on the road. Well, that's who would cover it. Would be your insurance company. They'll be responsible for the cleanup. And this, in my mind, could be a lot similar to that.
Other comments? All right. Did someone make the motion? I can't even remember.
I did, and maybe Ariana can read the motion to make sure that there is a reference to Todd's schedule.
And Brian has his hand up also.
Would he, Madam Reeve, would Anne Marie, would you, through the chair, would you consider adding a dollar amount that's estimated in that motion that Todd has outlined in that, or I'm sure, I think it was you, Todd, that outlined that in the cleanup, because I think it's a window. I like Councillor Crispin said, I think an open-ended one is a little bit uncomfortable. I think if we have a limit on the amount that has to be spent, I mean, it doesn't mean they can't come back, but I do think it's appropriate to put a dollar amount in that motion that we can spend up to.
So
And I heard 210 more thousand for a start. Is that what Matt referred to, or Todd?
Yeah, that's, so we approved the additional spending of $100,000 at the last meeting, and our estimation to get rid of the highly impacted area is 302 total, or 303 total. So if we were to make a motion, if we were to amend Anne Marie's motion to include $203,000 of additional spending, that would cover that whole recommended.
Ariana? How are you doing with that one?
I think I got something. Can you hear me? I'm never sure if my microphone. All right, moved by Councillor Phillipson that additional spending in the amount of $203,000 be approved from the stabilization fund to be used to clean out the heavily impacted areas identified on the soil erosion survey.
Sure. Yep, sounds good.
yes, and in the motion, I don't have to mention your advisory committee. That's a given for all of us, that you're going to continue with them and come back with a policy.
Good. Further discussion, or I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? The motion is carried. Anything else, Todd, on that topic today?
It certainly seems like I've talked about it a lot over the last month. I was impressed that Tina was able to get through what she did in such a short time. She took Catherine with her on a few of the days to help out, which I'm not sure if it was a ginormous help, being that Catherine can't walk so far right now, but it was good. It got them through the big areas really fast, and that's what we needed, was to get that survey done. We're also working with the MD of Tabor, County of Lethbridge, and 40 Mile. We're going to get Farming Smarter on our side, writing a few articles and getting some sort of research type documents pulled together for us. We've all supported Farming Smarter for years and years, and we're hoping that we can get them a great list of topics to get some education going, and we expect to be able to bring some education sometime this fall to our landowners, and hopefully throughout the summer as well, just through newsletter articles, things like that. I also had a phone call from the Foothills Forage Association. They also want to work with us on some education campaigns. Maybe they maybe have a different focus than Farming Smarter, being that they're a forage organization, but I think it'll all be good. So I'm quite looking forward to the outcome. It just can't happen fast enough. I honestly believe we're about 5 years late probably in having all of this set up. And this is just it's worse because it was so widespread. It's 94 kilometers of impacted road. That's a lot.
Yeah, and the summer's just begun. Hopefully the rains will come so we get things growing. That'll be the next problem.
I was told that you're never supposed to want, or you never want to irrigate your crop up. You always want Mother Nature to do that for you. And there's been so many guys that have seeded and the pivots were on before they left the field. It was, everybody's on it. It's not something that they forgot for sure. So.
We had pivots on before we seeded when the wind got up. So get the pivots on. Get that soil wet.
But
all right.
Very much for the conversation. I always enjoy learning everybody's perspective.
And yours too, Todd. Thank you. Okay, to post agenda items, a really light one that I added just for a motion for a letter of support for a grant application for Bassano Arts Council to apply to Alberta Culture for a grant to do some activities during Alberta Culture Week. Kelly moves that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And that takes us to information items. There's financial information there. Retirement of Dr. Folton. And then to in camera, I believe. Ariana, did you see anything we missed?
I think you got everything.
Perfect, thank you. So a motion to move in camera for our land and legal. QB moves us in camera. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.